never bashed a character this much when I actually, because it's funny because Yori is still my favorite love interest. Hello everyone, it's Luli, and today I'm going to be doing a review on Utakata no Uchronia. Look at how pretty they are. Sorry. But before I start, firstly I'd like to thank all of those who have supported me and gave me like birthday donations. It's so sweet. I can't get over it. It's so adorable. Particularly Raggedy. Honestly, you have done too much for me and my server. I can't thank you enough. The question of the video is, do you enjoy slow burn romance or do you find it frustrating? Also, I'd like to note that although I would not consider any of what I include in this video as spoilers, I'm aware that what you consider spoilers and what I consider spoilers may not quite align. So if you're even a little bit sensitive and you'd rather not know anything about the game at all, then I would swiftly move on. But anyway, let me start. So what is Utakata no Uchronia about? So it's based in this island that's supposed to be like a utopia. It's flying in it's sort of floating in the sky, and it's supposed to be a place where everyone lives happily and has no problems and no violence happens. Like, it's all supposed to be really peaceful. And people in this Itehari, which is the name of the island, truly believe this. Like, they from the bottom of their heart, especially nobles, they're like, oh, nowhere else is better than this island. Yeah, there are class differences, a bit of a hierarchy, and some issues that go on over there. And honestly, there are so many secrets, just things that you're a little bit maybe confused about at the beginning. There are just layers and layers and layers of law terminology you're gonna have to remember, like the place of sort of the names of places. And when you think you've learned a bit about the island, you play the next route and it's like you learn a bit more, and then you play the next route and you learn even more, and you think there isn't going to be any more to learn, but it just keeps on adding. And I mean, that's what I love about this game. But it is sort of about this main character who lives in this island, and then sort of things happen basically. Now, who made this game? So you've got the scenario writer Kazura Ringo, who also wrote Pio Fiore and Hakuoki, two very gritty and blood splattery games. I think if I say that, you'll know a bit more about this game. The artist is by Riri, who also drew Pio Fiore, and the art style is so... oh, it's just so cute. I especially like the main character. Now, the publisher is Lickobits. Everyone probably thought it was Otome to start with when all this stuff came up, but it's actually Lickobits, which is like a collaboration between Broccoli and Tis Creations. So, yeah, those are the people who made it. Now, system, the boring stuff. It took me about 45 to 50 hours to complete this game. There are 5 love interests plus 1 truth route. I think the common route was sort of... You know what, I'm not gonna lie to you, I actually found the common route a bit slow, and I was like, okay, am I gonna actually enjoy this game? And the thing is, the demo was the common route, so I feel like the demo really didn't do it justice. But yeah, I think the common route was about 2-3 hours maybe, and then you'd finish it. So it's not too long, which is nice. I'm not so huge on long common routes. Now there are good and bad endings per character, plus several of the mini silly ones where, you went down the wrong alleyway so you died, things like that. So in some ways it actually is quite similar to Pio Fiore. Now, one of the biggest differences that set this apart from Otome was this thing called 2D Live, where the sprites kind of I don't know, they basically moved, but they moved in a way that I couldn't help but laugh at the beginning, because yeah, the mouths move and the eyes move, that's quite typical, but they'd be like this the whole time. And almost like they're breathing with you. It's like they're trying to get you to do breathing exercises. I'm joking. But yeah, so that was something new. Though I'm not gonna lie, I would have rather they didn't spend their money on that and instead have a sprite with a blushy face, because that is something this game lacks in. We had no sprites where the characters like go red, and as someone who's a sucker for that, I was very disappointed. But anyway, so you have side stories that get unlocked after you finish each of the routes, which are sort of like little stories that you read, and it's from typically the point of view of that character, and it's quite nice. Now, they announced this DLC thing that you could download for free after, you know, you played the main game. I wouldn't really call it a DLC, to be honest. It felt just like another set of side stories, but yeah, so that's that. And of course, you have like the skip to next and all of those little functions that make life a lot easier for us Otome gamers. Now, moving on to the characters. So here we have our beloved main character, Hinagiku. She is like the very typical sheltered ojo-sama type, except she lacks the elegance and instead is this completely powerless and yet reckless chaos of a main character. She means well, but dear God, you're sort of sitting there going, no, don't do that. Oh, you've done it. If you know what I mean. And bless, I do feel sorry for Awayuki, her butler, which I will talk about in a moment. Because yeah, I mean, she means well, and I couldn't dislike her. I thought, like I said, she's so sweet, but dear God. Now, she is highborn and respected, so like really up there, but is, unlike the other nobles, extremely sweet to all of those who live in her district, because each of the head of the nobles, they're like different houses, they have to basically keep an eye on and look after their own district, and Hinagiku is the head of her, you know, district, because her parents are no longer there and all of that. And you know, while other nobles may have more of a like distant approach, hers is more of like a hands-on approach where she goes around, talks to all her like the people in her district and all of that, and so you know, they really like her and respect her, and it's actually quite heartwarming. I think it's sweet. Now, if there's one thing I would say that I didn't like about Hinagiku, and I don't know if they will correct this or this will come through when they localize it, because this game will be localized, is that she sort of speaks like a child would. And the thing is, like in Japan, if you're highborn, respected, you'll have elegance, class, you will always be talking in keigo, you know, you just don't really hear them speak like a child ever, really. And yet she just, I can't really explain it. I think you need to maybe live there or be brought up there to really understand the nuance of it, because I did speak to a couple of other unlocalized players and they didn't really like get the feeling I was so frustrated because like I kept on thinking she's like 10. And that's no fault on the game. I was just very curious why the writers decided to write her in such a way, because only when the CGs popped up was I like, oh yeah, she's 18. She's 18. If you know what I mean. Where is she 18? I know she's above 18, but my point is, I keep on thinking she's like 10 or something until the CGs pop up for me to realize, oh yes, of course, she's 18. And the thing is, they do describe her doing work and doing like the adult boring stuff of life. But because of the way she speaks, I know, I'll shut up about it, right? But I'm just saying, if you read it in Japanese, you will probably, once you see it, you may not be able to unsee it. I don't know. It's a nuance that maybe you may not pick up on, but if you do, it's really annoying. One thing I love about this main character, though, is she's so pretty. Look at her. Oh my god. I want her hair. I want her eyes. I want everything about her. I want to look like her. She's so gorgeous. And she's so pretty. You know, like some games, you're like, why do the main characters keep on calling this character pretty when she looks really average? I know I shouldn't say that, but you know, you get characters like that. But this one, I'm like, yep, she's pretty. Everything about her is gorgeous. I love her to bits. So I really appreciated the character design. And, you know, she was a fun character, but I think she would definitely be favored more in the West than in the East, I think. Now, the love interest. So we've got Tobari, who is voiced by Okamoto Nobuhiko, everyone's beloved Yang's voice actor. Now, he is from the red light district because, yes, this island also has a red light district. And may I add that the kind of structure of the place sort of reminded me a little bit of Winter's Wish, Spirits of Edo, where, you know, you had like the red light district, you had like the sort of more close to the castle parts, you had like the generic places, like it felt very much like that. Now he, of course, dislikes this hierarchy of having to respect the nobles no matter what. Because I guess he's from the red light district and he's seen all the bad parts of nobles, you know. He's very much the delinquent cool type, so think like, I don't know, like think of delinquents in a school, but like a more adult version. So he kind of feels really rough around the edges, and I do like that trope. It's really cool. And he keeps on calling Hinagiku Hime-san, and which means princess. But the way he says it sounds really like it hits your heart every time. Now, his route focused a lot on like the working class of Itehari, like the darker parts of the island, and he was the character I played first because at the beginning you have a choice between Awayuki, the butler, and Tobari, this character, and I went with this character, and yeah, he was all about the working class, what he's fighting for, all of that, and it was really interesting. As I said, each route gives you a bit more information on the game, like the world of it, which is quite good. It's like puzzle pieces fitting in together. Now, the next one I played was Awayuki, who is voiced by Saitou Souma, who also voices Mineo from Color Malice, which is weird because they're, you know, it goes to show voice actors do a really good job because those two characters are completely different. Now, Awayuki is Hinagiku's personal butler. He is always there for her. He does everything for her, from like making tea and desserts to like waking her up, brushing and doing her hair. Every time that happened, I was like, I want Awayuki to do my hair. Like, I want pretty hairstyles. Like, I couldn't help but think that. He's a little bit like a parent figure in a way, but not really. Like, he's just very protective, I suppose. But he is like, he is kind of Mr. Perfect in that everything he does, he seemed to do with perfection. He clearly worked hard there, type of thing. And yeah, he's just really cool. Like, he is that reliable character where Hinagiku can really trust him. And admittedly, he does have a mysterious past. You know literally like nothing about him until you play his route, and then everything comes out and you're like, oh, okay, this is interesting. But this route is very much the divided by class trope, because how dare Hinagiku, an upper class noble, date a mere butler? It's just, how dare they, type of thing. And that's the kind of route his was. And it did kind of touch upon, again, other parts of, I won't say what, but it did touch upon sort of other parts and maybe even hierarchy elements, yet again, of the world of this game. Then I played Tsuyukusa, who is voiced by Matsuoka Yoshitsugu, who voiced Alice from Taisho Alice. He is the classical childhood friends character who's a subtle tsunboy, and he will make your heart melt so many times. You just kind of watch him and he's so cute, and you can tell he cares so much about Hinagiku. You can't help but root for him even when you're on like the roots of other characters. But it is very much an unrequited love. As I said, Hinagiku is very sort of I don't know, she cares a lot about others equally. She doesn't have like a favorite necessarily. She doesn't notice when people have feelings for her, bless her. But to be honest, a lot of Otome games, they're all clueless, so you know, that's nothing new. But yeah, so it's like you watch Tsuyukusa and he cares and you're like, oh my heart, I hope it works for you. I really don't, type of thing. Now he is a massive gadget / machine nerd, which is quite cute actually. And no, I really like the effect they did sometimes. In some of the routes, he would be talking about gadgets and machinery, and then his voice will be in the background while you're talking to another character to kind of show how much he won't stop talking once you get him started, type of thing. And I thought that was a nice little touch. And may I just say, he is the tallest character, and you know, that adds bonus points. Now, Tsuyukusa route is unlocked once you play Tobari. So that's something to bear. You can't just go straight into his route, unfortunately. But once you do, he is worth it. I think maybe he's my second favorite. I think it's really hard. I struggle to rate all the characters, if I'm to be completely honest. Now, fourth is Yori, who is voiced by Eguchi Takuya. Eguchi Takuya voiced Gretel from Taisho Arisu. Again, completely different, although like that sort of air of arrogance sounded kind of similar looking back at it now. Now, Yori is like you know how I love red flag characters? Well, Yori, he is just on a sort of, I just can't, he's really difficult to describe. It's kind of like, you know how in Otome games, normally red flag characters have that kind of like sad background or something, I don't know. But with Yori, it was sort of, I don't know, it's hard to explain. It's just, you think by the end you've changed him or whatever, but no, he's still horrible. But I love it in a weird way. He is high up in the police organization, because there's a police organization in Itehari called Kurotsuru, I think. And yeah, he's quite higher up. He's of course from a noble family. I mean, how would you have an Ore-sama character without them being noble? So he's always like arrogant, speaks from like a higher place. Like I said, massive a-hole. Yep. Classical red flag. As I said, the reddest of red flags, in that I can't comprehend. I feel like a lot of red flag characters, they're rather simple really. You kind of can see their thought process. But with him, it's just like a complete, I don't understand. Like I can't, even at the end, I couldn't truly understand why or where he's coming from. Like he's just very, I mean, which makes it just that more realistic, because, you know, realistic horrible people sorry Yori, I'm so sorry, realistic horrible people is hard to understand. Like it's hard to comprehend why they do the things that they do, but like with him it was like that. You know, because it wasn't extreme either. With a lot of red flag characters, they do extreme things, like randomly kill people, like Yang, or like they'll do horrible things. But with him, it was just sort of like, it was realistically horrible, which made it just that worse. One thing I did not like about his character is his insane inferiority complex. I'm sorry, but like I felt like going, can you please stop? I don't know. I know it's hard, Yori, but I felt like telling him, just bloody get over it. I know that doesn't help, but like, because it's just so ingrained into him. I won't say like how or who or why, because that kind of is, you know, a spoiler, but it's just so ingrained into him. You're just watching it will happen, and because he's such an a-hole, you struggle to kind of feel sorry for him as well. Sorry, I don't think I've ever bashed a character this much when I actually, you know, because it's funny, because Yori is still my favorite love interest out of all of them. Yeah, I'm bashing him completely. But it was really weird. I don't know whether, yeah, no comment really. I liked him though. His root, oof. Great CGs, let me put it that way. Now, last but not least is Yashiro, who was voiced by Kobayashi Chiaki. He hasn't voiced many like Otome game characters, to be honest. He voiced one of the side characters in Cupid, Parasite, Sweet and Spicy Darling. I can't remember his name, but it's the silver-haired one that I've put a teeny picture there. I think he's also going to voice a character in one of the future Otome games as well. So maybe he's like up and coming in the Otome world. I do apologize that I know so little about voice actors. Perhaps there are some of you out there who can like add a bit more and tell me a bit more at some point. But this character, Yashiro, he's a bit kind of airheaded and a bit like strange, fushigi-chan as we call them in Japanese, which is weird-chan, very strange and obscure, but you do you kind of characters. He rescues Hinagiku right at the beginning and then ends up kind of staying with Tsuyukusa because Hinagiku can't take him in, but Tsuyukusa's living on his own, so why not? And Yashiro can help Tsuyukusa with his shop, and it kind of all works out nicely. So Yashiro pops up quite a bit in all the routes, and he's, you know, you're always left wondering in every single other route who he is. And the thing is, there were a couple of predictable things, well, in my opinion, in a lot of the routes where I'm like, oh, so-and-so is probably this or that, and it usually is. And, you know, I mean, I have played a lot of Otome games, so I guess I kind of get the structure of what's likely to happen, so I could make these guesses quite a bit. But with Yashiro, I had like some inklings of possibilities about him, but like until right at the end when you play his route, there was so many question marks. I didn't know anything about him, I couldn't figure him out, and eventually you play his route, you learn more about him, and everything, like, it all makes sense, you know? I thought he was also quite a unique character in that, I won't say why, because that's spoilers, but I thought he was rather unique. His route definitely answered a lot of the questions, but then also left room for more for the truth route. And, you know, one thing I found interesting about this game is that sort of the level in which you kind of feel closeness to each of the love interests almost feels like you can directly experience it through Hinagiku, in that Yashiro and Yori, she doesn't know at all. So, you know, even by the end, there is some chemistry there and they are together, but like there is this sort of this kind of, you don't know them that well kind of feeling almost, which is really weird because in a lot of Otome games, by the end of their route, you feel like you've known their whole life story. But in this case, it was kind of it left room a little bit of, there's still quite a bit that I don't know about Yashiro and Yori, weirdly enough. And it almost felt realistic in a way, like you've only dated for a little bit, so there's still a lot more to learn type of thing. Whereas Tsuyukusa and Awayuki, the butler and the childhood friend, those two, because, you know, Hinagiku has known them for such a long time, you kind of feel already close to them, and it's really weird. I don't know how to explain it. This game is really strange. And then you've got Tobari, which I felt was like a great exception because they kind of seemed to get close really quickly because they were put in such dire situations in his route, because his route was very like roller coastery, you know. So he was the exception. But yeah, it was just really strange. I've never felt this way in a game before, so it was definitely a unique experience. Now, recommended order. The way I played was Tobari, Awayuki. Wait, let me quickly tell you the haircut and stuff so that you're not like, who the hell's Tobari? Because the way I played was Tobari, the delinquent brown-haired one, then Awayuki, the butler, then Tsuyukusa, the childhood friend, then Yori, the red-haired a-hole, and then Yashiro, the slightly strange one with black hair, and then Truth. So you have to play Tobari to unlock Tsuyukusa, and you have to play Awayuki to unlock Yori. But I'm not gonna lie, I wish, so I've put here the way in which I would have liked to play, and I'm not gonna lie, I really wish I could have played Yori before Awayuki. Now, I won't tell you why, but all I will say is that in that order, I feel like you could relate to Hinagiku more. So I think that was a little bit of a shame, but I also understand that with a game like this where it's all about layering the lore on top of each other, I feel like you need the foundation to build the other bits of lore on. So I understand why there was a restriction in that. Like I said, this is such a lore heavy, like, world building game where there's layers and layers of info that keeps on getting thrown on you. I understand why there would be a root restriction. But yeah, so that's kind of the recommended order and who gets unlocked and blah blah blah. So who would I and would I not recommend this game to? I would recommend this game to those who love a game that's like padded with lore, because honestly this is sort of the game where they really focused on the world building, so much so that it may have caused the pacing of the plot to take a while. Same goes for the romance. It's very much slow burn. You know, the romance happens quite a bit towards the end. But if you're okay with that, if you would rather a world that's like so beautifully described and everything, then this is a perfect game. And I think it did feel, so in Japan we say, we have a term, kameba kamu hodo oishiku naru, which basically means the more you chew it, the better it gets. And this game was like that, in that, I'm not gonna lie to you, the first route and maybe the second route, I was like, I don't really, like, it's okay, but I wouldn't like rave about this game. It's okay. But then, like, as I played more and more routes, I was like, damn, this is actually getting really interesting and I want to know more. And like, every route I played was more motivation to play the next one. And you know, like, if you haven't played the game to the end or you didn't understand some of the words, maybe you might even like call it soulless or something. But if you read it to the end and you fully understood it, then I would say you would really appreciate it. It's that kind of game, if that makes sense. But if you don't have the patience, I completely get that as well. But yeah, that's the kind of game this is. Now, I would also, of course, recommend it to those who don't mind slow pace and would, actually prefer plot over romance. Romance is there. There's more of it than, let's say, Buster Fellows, but it is very, like, slow burn. Another is that if you enjoy a reckless, do before you think kind of protagonist, I don't think she's stupid. It's just more, she cares so much about people around her that she does her best to, like, she just doesn't really think. She tries to help. Even in situations where you're like, it's probably better if you don't, but she still does, bless her. So if you don't mind main characters like that, then I think you're good. She's very proactive. Also, if you like a mix of like Japanese with steampunk, there's a lot of steampunk elements in that. They talk about like machines and like the way the island is built and all of that. It was really interesting. It kind of almost felt like I said, the world itself almost felt like Winter's Wish, Spirits of Edo, with like your typical Japanese kind of castle thing, and then you've got like, the further you go out, the lower your class is almost, that sort of thing. But then with like the steampunk elements of like, they say they brought, technology from the West and all of this. So it's kind of like that sort of hybrid almost. Also, I would recommend it to those who like a gritty, depressing type of game, because there were many moments in this where, it did feel quite like, don't get me wrong, I felt like in this game, the bad endings were the true endings, because the bad endings made more sense than the good endings, which I will go into in a little bit. But yeah, so like if you kind of maybe like the atmosphere of, let's say, Pure Fiore, for example, where it feels kind of depressing and gloomy, then this might be quite a good game for you. Now, Who would I not recommend this game to? I would definitely not recommend it to those who want like a fluffy, happy game with lots of kisses and like sparkles and happiness. And I also wouldn't recommend it to those who want a game where you don't like have to think. If you're stressed in life and you just want a game where you're just sort of like, okay, cool, oh, that's sweet. Like if that's what you're looking for, then this may not be it, because this game does kind of force you to sort of learn the lore, I guess, and it's quite gritty, and you know, so it may not be for you. If you're looking for spice, don't get me wrong, there's a couple of CGs that are very spicy. I say very spicy. They're not like Olympia Soiree or Pio Fiore level necessarily, but there are some where you see a little bit of skin color and you're like, oh. But I don't think overall it's a spicy sort of game. So if you are looking for spice, definitely look elsewhere. This is very much a plot, lore kind of Otome game where romance does happen, but that kind of takes a bit of a backseat. I also wouldn't recommend it to those who struggle with slow-paced games. Now, I am a bit like that, which is why this game, it took me a while to complete. I'm not so great with reading slow-paced games in general. So, you know, for those who are like that, it may be tough because, yeah, the lore just, there's so much of it. There's like the world building side, and that's become such a focus that the way in which the plot goes can feel a little bit like, if you scan reading, it feels like it's going at a good pace, but that requires scan reading. I also wouldn't recommend it to those who prefer like some of the more sort of relaxed, mature, thinks kind of protagonists, because like I said, this one, she's just reckless. She just does things and you're like, no, but she does them anyway. Whereas if you want a character that's like, let's say Lily from Pio Fiore, for example, and I know I keep on comparing it to Pio Fiore, it's because it's got like the same screenwriter and artist, but you know, if you want a character like Lily, for example, where she's a bit more like relaxed, on the low down, mature, then this may not be the game for you, because yeah, the protagonist is, yeah, like I said, very reckless. I also wouldn't recommend it to those who feel like you won't have the patience. As I said, I felt like this game truly shined after like 2 routes and maybe the 3rd. That's when I started really enjoying it and wanting to learn more about like the society and politics and all of that. So if you feel like you don't have the patience, then I wouldn't recommend this game either. Now, thoughts on each aspect. I would say the story for me was a 4 out of 5. It was quite interesting. The plot, you know, I enjoyed that each of the routes covered different aspects of Itehari, this island in the sky, and so I like that. The characters, I'd say a 3.5 out of 5. None of them like really spoke to me necessarily. Like in some ways, the side character that I actually liked more, for example. But I think they all each had like their sort of shine, but just none of them particularly stood out to me, if that makes sense. Which is why I'm giving them like a 3.5, which is like on the, like, you know, higher than average, but just, I guess if a couple had like caught my attention a bit more, it would be higher. So this is very, as I always say, this is very much a personal rating. Some of you out there may like all the other characters, like all the characters and love interests, and then it would be like a 5 out of 5, if you know what I mean. So that's very personal, but yeah, 3.5. Music, I'd say 3.5. In general, it's just calm, typical, nice music, I guess. The thing that brings it up by like half a point or whatever is that I really liked this action-packed music that would play every time in the end. It just, I don't know, it made the scene so much more exciting, and I don't know, it made me all like giddy. So just for that, you know, one tune, it gets a little bit of a nudge. Art, I'd say 4 out of 5. It's very pretty, typical of Diddy. Some of the CGs, I would say, like, I mean, who am I to talk? I can't draw at all. So, but if I were to be like, you know, particularly harsh, there were some where the angle looked maybe, I don't know, maybe it's just me thinking it looks a bit weird, but like, Yeah, but most of the CGs looked really beautiful. I love the sprites. You've seen Hinagiko, she looks absolutely gorgeous. So if you were satisfied with like the CGs from Pio Fiore, you'll probably be satisfied with the CGs in Utakata no Uchronia as well. I gave the romance 45%. It isn't like particularly high. It's on the low side, to be honest, but you do see like the romance build in the route, and you know, it's not like it takes a complete backseat, so it's still there, just not on a high level. Like, you do still get kiss scenes, you know, that sort of thing, so there is some intimacy there. It's just not like in your face, and the plot does take more of a precedence, to be honest. Now for my final verdict and rating. Oh my god, the world building and lore, I just can't, like, they really layered it on, and I thought I was quite impressed, to be honest, because I do feel like a lot of Otome games in general, they kind of like, they build a bit of a world and then call it a day, you know, but this one, it was all about that, and I think that is the strength truly of this game. It was very much slow burn though, because of that, with a snail-like pace at times where you're like, okay, cool. When I started scan reading it, well, not scan reading it, but like when I started skipping voice lines, basically, I found that I enjoyed it more, because then I was getting through the story a bit quicker. But yeah, the pacing can be quite slow. Now, if there's one thing that I was particularly like about, it was the endings. The bad endings were always, I think, done really well. Great. In my head, they are the true endings. Good endings, it sometimes kind of was like, oh, that's nice. Like, everything conveniently comes together and works out in the end. It's very like Hollywood, if you know what I mean. And I suppose in some ways it's good in that when you play this game, as long as you pick the right options, you know the happily ever after is going to be like a comforting happily ever after, as opposed to like the, is this really a happily ever after type of thing. So in some ways it's comforting, but also like for me, every time, okay, I say every time, quite a few times I'd be like, what? Everything is so conveniently like, just, I couldn't help. But that's why I always saw the bad endings more as a true ending, because yeah, the good endings sometimes felt a little bit too convenient. Unfortunately, none of the love interests like hit me hard. Some of the side characters, on the other hand, there was one particular one I can think of, and I feel like many of you out there will feel exactly how I felt. A very attractive, very tall, very handsome, very kudere side character that I'm sitting there going, why was he not a love interest? Like, if he was a love interest, he would have made a really, like, his plot would have been good, everything would have been great, but no, he's a side character. And yeah. So, but yeah, none that, I don't think it's that they weren't good or they weren't special. I guess I just didn't really relate or kind of resonate with any of them, I guess. I feel like other people may feel differently. I have seen lots of unlocalized players hype about certain characters, so, you know, this is a very personal thing, but yeah, none of the love interests are like really stood out. Okay, Yori did kind of make an impression, but I've always liked red flag characters. One last thing, oh, I hope there will be a sequel. I didn't, like, when I first played this game, I didn't think I'd think this, to be honest. As I said, the first two routes, I was kind of like, it's alright, but nah. But in the end, I was like, I need to know more about this aspect. We haven't learned enough about this aspect of the world. Like, if they announce a sequel, I will be on it, buying it very quickly, because I just need to know more, basically. But yeah, so that kind of covers everything. I would give it a 7.3 out of 10. At the beginning, I thought it would be like a 6 out of 10, but towards the end, I was just really impressed, so 7.3. If I had liked the characters, like if some of the characters had like particularly stood out to me, it probably would have pushed it up to like a 7.8. So very personal score, but I enjoyed it, and so it was a solid 7.3 out of 10. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I hope this video helped you sort of learn more about this game and maybe even encourage some of you to go ahead and buy it and pick it up and play it. Yeah, or the other way around, and maybe even save money depending on who you are. But anyway, as is always the case, thank you very much for watching. Remember to like and subscribe if you enjoyed the content, and hopefully I will see you in another one of my videos. Bye!